Don't go into the basement. I moved into Mark's house on a rainy Tuesday in October. The rain in Oregon never really stops, but that day it came down in sheets. I had just walked away from a messy breakup and needed somewhere cheap and quiet to start over. Mark was in his early 50s. Tall. Thin. Polite, but distant. He had the kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The rent was less than half of anything else I'd seen in town. It almost felt suspicious, but I told myself I was lucky. Mark showed me the upstairs room. The walls were pale green, the carpet old but clean. The window looked out over a line of pine trees that swayed in the wind. There was just one rule. Don't go into the basement, Mark said. His tone wasn't threatening. It was casual. Like someone reminding you to take your shoes off inside. I nodded and laughed it off. Everyone has their quirks. For the first few days, things were peaceful. I unpacked my boxes. I bought cheap groceries from the corner store. In the evenings, I read by the window while the rain tapped against the glass. But then, the noises started. At night, I'd hear footsteps in the hallway outside my door. Not fast. Slow. Deliberate. Sometimes they'd stop right outside, and I'd hear breathing. When I asked Mark about it, he smiled. Old houses make noise, he said. Then he walked away before I could say more. One evening, I came home late from my shift at the diner. The house was dark except for a faint glow coming from the basement door. It flickered, like candlelight. I stood there for a moment, listening. I thought I heard voices. Low. Muffled. I almost knocked, but something in my gut told me not to. I went upstairs and shut my door. A few days later, I was in the kitchen making coffee. Mark came in behind me without a sound. I jumped, nearly spilling the mug. He didn't apologize. Instead, he asked if I'd been sleeping well. His eyes stayed on mine for a few seconds too long. That night, I woke to the sound of something heavy dragging across the floor downstairs. It scraped, paused, scraped again. I sat up in bed, listening. The noise stopped. The house was silent. On Friday, at exactly 3:04 a.m., there were 3 slow knocks on my bedroom door. I froze. The air felt colder. Heavier. I got out of bed and opened the door. Mark stood there in his bathrobe. His hair was messy. His eyes were wide, but unfocused. He leaned forward and whispered, "Don't go back to sleep." Then he turned and walked away. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He chatted about the weather while making toast. I didn't bring it up. That evening, when I came home, my bedroom door was unlocked. Inside, my suitcase was packed. My clothes were neatly folded. My phone charger was wound into a perfect coil. On top of the suitcase was a handwritten note. "You'll thank me later. Don't be here tomorrow night." I didn't sleep. Every creak and groan of the house kept me on edge. Around midnight, I thought I heard crying coming from the basement. Not loud. Just a faint, broken sound. I sat on my bed, staring at the door, until the first light of morning. I left before dawn and checked into a cheap motel 2 towns over. I told myself I'd come back in a few days for my things. The next morning, I turned on the TV in the motel room. Mark's house was on the news. It had burned to the ground in the early hours before sunrise. The fire department said it started in the basement. They also said they found 3 bodies down there, and none of them belonged to Mark. I packed my bag and left the motel. I never went back. I never saw Mark again. Night shift. I work the night shift at a small supermarket just off the highway. It's usually quiet after midnight. Most of my job is just watching the security monitors and doing slow patrols through the aisles. 3 nights ago, around 2:17 a.m., the front door alarm went off. I looked at the monitor. The glass doors were closed. Locked. But in the grainy black and white footage, a man was standing inside the store. He was tall, thin, wearing a hooded sweatshirt with the hood pulled low over his face. He didn't move for several seconds. Then, slowly, he turned his head toward the camera. I grabbed the flashlight and my keys. Ran to the front. Nothing. The doors were still locked. No one inside. I told myself it was a glitch. But when I got back to the monitor room, the man was still there, now in aisle 4. Standing perfectly still. Head tilted like he was listening for something. I didn't go out there. I just sat and stared at the screen, my heart pounding. After about a minute, the feed flickered and the aisle was empty again. Last night, it happened again. This time, I didn't leave the monitor room. I watched as he appeared in the dairy section. Then, without walking, without moving his legs, he was suddenly 3 aisles closer to the office. The cameras aren't supposed to glitch like that. I called my manager at home. No answer. I was about to dial the police when every monitor went black for exactly 10 seconds. When the picture came back, the man was gone. But the office door behind me was slowly swinging shut. The phone on the bus. I was taking the late bus home last Thursday. It was almost empty. Just me, a couple of teenagers in the back, and an old man who got off 2 stops before mine. When he left, I noticed something on the seat he'd been sitting in. A phone. Old, scratched, the kind with a cracked screen and no case. I picked it up, planning to hand it to the driver. But when I pressed the side button, the screen lit up. It didn't have a lock screen. The gallery app was already open. The first photo was of an empty room. The next photo was of the same room, but from a slightly different angle. And in the corner, barely visible, was a shadow. The third photo was closer to the shadow. It looked like a person standing perfectly still. I swiped through the images. Each one was closer. Clearer. The last photo was of a face. Pale. Expressionless. And it was looking directly into the camera. I closed the gallery and locked the phone. That's when it buzzed in my hand. A new photo appeared. It was me. Sitting on the bus. Taken just seconds ago. I dropped the phone and ran to the driver, trying to explain. But when we went back to the seat, the phone was gone. I walked home that night, checking over my shoulder every few steps. And when I got to my apartment, there was a package at my door. No label. No address. Inside was the phone.